The voicemail played twice before I deleted it. "We're not coming to another one of your pointless work dinners, Arya." My mother's words still echoed when the CEO announced my name to a room full of executives and press cameras. Director of Strategic Development. $1.2 million annually. The two empty chairs at the front table told everyone exactly who hadn't shown up. By morning, their neighbors were calling to congratulate them. That's when my father finally understood what he'd missed. Welcome to Revenge with Precious, where we share real stories of betrayal, resilience, and the courage to stand up for yourself. These are tales of people who refused to stay silent, who drew boundaries when love turned toxic, and who chose their peace over family obligation. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, these stories are for you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see your own life. Please, watch till the end. Let's get started. The crystal chandeliers cast diamonds across white tablecloths. I stood near the podium, champagne glass trembling slightly in my hand, staring at two empty chairs with name cards that read Mom and Dad. Around me, colleagues laughed and clinked glasses. The company's senior VP adjusted his tie, preparing to make the announcement. My phone buzzed again. Another missed call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. 3 hours earlier, she'd made her position clear. Now the entire executive team would see exactly what that looked like. The pianist began a soft melody. My boss, Gerald Hutchins, touched my shoulder gently. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, forcing my lips into something resembling confidence. The applause began before I could answer. 6 hours earlier, I'd stood by my apartment window overlooking downtown Portland, phone pressed against my ear. Rain streaked the glass in uneven patterns. "Mom, it's not just a work dinner," I said carefully. "It's my official promotion ceremony. The company's making it public." Silence stretched between us like elastic about to snap. Then her voice came, flat and dismissive. "Arya, your father and I are exhausted. We've been to enough of your little office things over the years." My throat tightened. "This one's different." She sighed, the sound carrying years of practiced disappointment. "They're always different to you, sweetheart. We'll send flowers." The line went dead before I could tell her about the salary. Before I could explain this wasn't another team lunch. My name is Arya Blackwell, and I stopped asking my parents to be proud of me the day I realized their approval was conditional on me staying small. I learned this slowly, the way you learn that winter's coming by counting the dying leaves. Not all at once, but in accumulated moments that eventually bury you. I grew up in Salem, Oregon, in a house where silence was a language and disappointment was spoken fluently. My older brother, Tobias, was the golden child who could do no wrong even when he did everything wrong. I was the one who tried too hard, achieved too quietly, and disappeared too easily into the background of family photos. Childhood memories have a way of staying sharp when you wish they'd blur. I was 9 when I won the regional science fair. I'd spent 3 months building a water filtration system from recycled materials, staying up past midnight with my father's old engineering books spread across my bedroom floor. The day of the award ceremony, my mother said she had a migraine. My father drove Tobias to baseball practice instead. I stood on stage alone, holding my blue ribbon, scanning the audience for faces that weren't there. Mrs. Pemberton, my teacher, took photos. She drove me home afterward, her Honda smelling like vanilla air freshener and pity. My parents were watching television when I walked in. "Oh, you're back," my mother said without looking up. College became my escape route, though they made sure I knew it was their generosity funding it. Every semester, my mother would call to review my course selection, questioning whether literature classes were practical or if my part-time job at the campus library was taking focus away from real opportunities. She meant opportunities that looked good when she talked to her book club friends. When I made Dean's List 3 semesters running, she told me not to let it go to my head. "Plenty of people do well in school and fail in life," she said. My father would nod, adding that Tobias had street smarts that mattered more than grades. Tobias was 26, living in their basement, and hadn't held a job longer than 4 months. After graduation, I moved to Portland and found work as a junior data analyst. The salary was modest, but it was mine. Freedom tasted like instant ramen in a studio apartment with water-stained ceilings. Then the calls started. Small requests at first. Could you help with the electric bill this month? Your father's hours got cut. Then car repairs. Then Tobias's legal fees after his third DUI. I sent money every time, afraid that refusing would confirm what I suspected they already believed, that I was selfish, ungrateful, the daughter who forgot where she came from. The requests grew larger. The gratitude grew smaller. By my third year working, I'd sent them over $18,000. They never once asked how I was managing. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday in March. My mother called during my lunch break, her voice syrupy with false warmth. "Arya, honey, your father and I have been talking. We're thinking of refinancing the house, and we need a co-signer with good credit. You're doing so well now." She paused, letting the implication hang. It would really help the family. My chest tightened. I'd just been approved for my own small condo. Co-signing their loan would destroy that chance. "Mom, I can't. I'm in the middle of a purchase myself." The warmth evaporated instantly. "I see. So now that you have a little money, we're not important anymore." She hung up before I could explain. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. I didn't call back. For the first time in my adult life, I let their disappointment exist without trying to fix it. Days passed. Then weeks. My mother sent a single text, "Your father and I are very hurt." I stared at those 6 words for an hour before typing back, "I'm sorry you feel that way." It was the most honest thing I'd said to them in years. Work became my sanctuary. I arrived early, stayed late, and poured everything into a project redesigning our client data infrastructure. My manager, Patricia Volkov, noticed. "You're different lately," she said one evening, finding me still at my desk at 8 p.m. "More focused." I smiled tiredly. "Just trying to build something that matters." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Keep going." 3 weeks after the phone call, I learned through my Aunt Delilah that my mother had been telling relatives I'd abandoned the family. The story spread through our extended network like fire through dry grass. Cousins who'd never called before suddenly sent concerned messages. "Is everything okay? Your mom says you won't help them anymore." I didn't defend myself. Didn't explain. The people who mattered would ask me directly. The ones who believed gossip without question weren't worth the energy. But it hurt anyway, the way paper cuts hurt worse than you expect. I lay awake that night, staring at my ceiling, wondering when exactly I'd become the villain in their version of our story. My phone buzzed with another message. I turned it face down and didn't check. Work became more than an escape. It became proof. Proof that I was capable. That I mattered. That my worth wasn't determined by their approval or lack of it. I spent 60-hour weeks rebuilding our database architecture, finding inefficiencies that had cost the company millions over time. Patricia started including me in senior meetings. Gerald Hutchins, our CEO, learned my name. "You see patterns other people miss," he told me after I presented a cost analysis that identified 3 redundant systems. "That's rare." I smiled, feeling something unfamiliar warmth that wasn't followed by conditions. When I left the office that night, I bought myself flowers. Small yellow roses from the bodega on the corner. They sat on my kitchen table for 2 weeks, outlasting my mother's last text. In September, Gerald called me into his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline. He gestured to a chair. "We're bidding on an international contract. Data security infrastructure for a consortium of European banks. If we win, it's worth $400 million over 5 years." He paused, watching me carefully. "I want you to lead the technical proposal." My heart hammered. This was stratospheric, beyond anything I'd touched before. "It'll mean 6 months of 18-hour days," he continued. "Travel. Pressure. If we lose, it'll hurt. But if we win..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "I'll do it," I said. He smiled. "I thought you might." That night, I called my parents to tell them. My father answered, sounding distracted. "That's nice, honey. Listen, Tobias needs help with rent." I hung up mid-sentence. October blurred into November. I lived at the office, surviving on coffee and the kind of exhaustion that felt like purpose. My team worked around the clock, refining security protocols, stress testing systems, preparing presentations in 3 languages. The day before our flight to Brussels for the final pitch, I tried calling my parents one more time. Some stubborn part of me still wanted to hear pride in their voices. My mother answered. "Arya, what is it?" "No greeting, just impatience. I'm flying to Belgium tomorrow. It's a major presentation for work." Silence. Then her voice, cool and dismissive. "You always make such a big deal out of business trips. Your father and I have real things to worry about." I stood in the airport terminal, watching planes take off through massive windows. "Goodbye, Mom," I said quietly. This time, I hung up first. We won the contract. 3 months later, after implementation began flawlessly, Gerald called me back to his office. This time, Patricia was there too, smiling in a way that made my stomach flip. "Sit down, Arya," Gerald said. On his desk was a leather folder, embossed with the company logo. He slid it toward me. "Director of Strategic Development. You'll oversee all major contract implementations going forward. Full executive benefits, equity package, and a base salary of $1.2 million annually." The room tilted slightly. Patricia laughed. "Breathe, Arya. You earned this." I opened the folder with shaking hands. The number was printed in clean black ink. Real. Undeniable. "We're making the announcement public," Gerald continued. "Board meeting next Thursday, followed by a celebration. Invite whoever you want. We're covering everything." I wrote the invitation by hand, on cream-colored cardstock I bought from a stationery store that smelled like vanilla and old books. The pen was heavier than I expected. "Mom and Dad," I began, then crossed it out. Started again. "To my parents. I'd like to invite you to my promotion ceremony next Thursday evening at the Meridian Hotel. It would mean the world to have you there. Love, Arya." I addressed the envelope carefully, used a real stamp, walked it to the post office myself. For 3 days, I checked my phone obsessively. Nothing. On the 4th day, a text arrived from my mother. Short. Brutal in its casualness. "We can't make it. Tell Tobias to record some video for us. Congrats on whatever this is." I read it 5 times, waiting for the pain to hit. Instead, I just felt tired. So very tired. The morning of the ceremony, I woke at dawn. My apartment was silent except for the hum of traffic below. I made coffee, watching steam curl toward the ceiling, and tried to imagine how the evening would unfold. Would I feel their absence like a wound? Or would I finally, mercifully, feel nothing at all? I chose a midnight blue dress, simple and elegant. Patricia had offered to pick me up, but I drove myself, needing the quiet time. The Meridian's ballroom glowed golden when I arrived. 20 round tables, each set for 8. The head table, closest to the podium, had place cards arranged carefully. Mine in the center. Gerald to my left. Patricia to my right. And 2 seats, directly in my sightline, labeled Mom and Dad. My assistant, knowing nothing, had arranged them perfectly. I didn't move them. The room filled quickly. Colleagues, clients, board members, local press. The energy was electric, celebratory. I stood near the bar, accepting congratulations, smiling until my cheeks ached. At 7 sharp, Gerald took the podium. "Tonight, we celebrate not just a promotion, but a transformation," he began. 3 years ago, Arya Blackwell joined us as an analyst. Today, she becomes the youngest director of strategic development in our company's 40-year history. The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed. I walked to the podium, acutely aware of those 2 empty chairs. Gerald handed me a crystal plaque engraved with my name and new title. I held it carefully, feeling its weight. "Thank you," I said simply. The crowd kept clapping. Behind me, the empty seats stayed perfectly, devastatingly visible in every photograph. The story ran in the Portland Business Journal the next morning. Local analyst rises to $1 million executive role. By noon, it had been picked up by 3 regional outlets. Someone had included photos from the ceremony, including several clear shots of the empty chairs. My phone started buzzing around 2 p.m. Messages from cousins, old high school friends, even my Aunt Delilah. Saw the article. So proud. By evening, my father called. I let it ring. He called again. And again. Finally, a voicemail. His voice tight, caught between pride and something uglier. Arya, we just heard. You should have told us it was this important. Call us back. 20 minutes later, my mother texted, everyone's asking us about your promotion. You embarrassed us by not telling us the details. I read both messages twice. Then I poured myself wine and didn't respond. They called together the next morning, my mother's voice sugary with false warmth. Sweetheart, we're so sorry we missed your party. We had no idea it was such a big deal. My father jumped in, his tone hovering between apologetic and accusatory. You should have been clearer, Arya. We would have come if we'd known about the salary. I stood in my kitchen, watching rain slide down the window. I told you it was important, I said quietly. That wasn't enough? My mother's voice hardened. Don't be dramatic. We're calling to congratulate you now. Can't you just accept that? I closed my eyes. You're not calling because you're proud. You're calling because your neighbors found out first, and now you look bad. Silence crackled between us. That's unfair, my father said finally. Is it? I asked. Then I hung up. This time, I blocked their numbers before they could call back. The next week, I met with the family lawyer, Bernard Strauss, in his downtown office. Wood-paneled walls, leather chairs that smelled expensive. I want to establish clear boundaries, I told him. All communication from my parents goes through you. Financial, legal, personal. Everything. He nodded, taking notes without judgment. I've seen this before. Families who mistake proximity for relationship. He drafted the letter himself, professional and airtight. Ms. Blackwell has requested that all future communications be directed through this office. She will respond at her discretion. We sent it certified mail. My mother called Bernard within hours, sobbing about how I'd turned corporate and heartless. He listened politely, then repeated the terms. When she hung up, he sent me a brief email, boundary established. They're not happy. I smiled for the first time in days. The backlash came fast. My mother posted on social media, nothing direct, just vague enough to gather sympathy. It's hard when your children forget where they came from. Success changes people, not always for the better. Within hours, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were commenting with hearts and prayers. My Aunt Delilah called, her voice carefully neutral. Your mother's taking this hard, Arya. Maybe you could just talk to her. I kept my voice steady. Did she tell you she dismissed my promotion 3 times before she knew the salary? That she's asked me for $18,000 over 2 years but never once asked how I was doing? Delilah went quiet. I didn't know that. No one ever does, I said gently. They control the narrative. She didn't call again, but she stopped commenting on my mother's posts. 3 months later, I received a call from Camden Reeves, Salem's newly elected mayor. Ms. Blackwell, we're creating a community leadership recognition program. Your name came up repeatedly as someone who exemplifies success from humble roots. We'd like to honor you at our spring gala. I hesitated. Going back to Salem meant proximity to my parents. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't hiding anymore. I'd be honored, I told him. The gala was held in Salem's historic courthouse, the same building where I'd received that science fair ribbon 20 years earlier. Camden's speech was generous, highlighting my work and my commitment to funding STEM programs for underprivileged students. When he called me to the stage, I saw them in the back row. My parents. Uninvited, but there. My mother's face was pale. My father looked smaller somehow. I accepted the award, thanked the crowd, and walked right past them on my way out. My mother caught me in the parking lot, her hand reaching for my arm. Arya, please. Can we just talk? I stopped, but didn't turn fully. Behind her, my father stood frozen, hands in his pockets. You already talked, Mom. The whole town heard you. Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. We both did. Can't you forgive us? I looked at her finally, really looked. She was older than I remembered, tired in ways that weren't just physical. Forgiveness isn't the problem, I said softly. The problem is you only wanted me when I was useful, or small enough to control, or successful enough to make you look good. I don't fit into any of those boxes anymore." She opened her mouth to argue. I held up my hand. "I hope you're well. I really do. But I'm done performing for your approval." I walked to my car. She didn't follow. 2 weeks later, Bernard called with news I hadn't expected. "Your parents applied for a refinance loan using your old address and credit information. The bank flagged it as suspicious and contacted me since I'm listed as your representative." My stomach dropped. They used my credit? Attempted to. "The bank's launching an inquiry. They'll need your statement." I provided everything: documentation showing I'd lived independently for 6 years, copies of the texts where I'd refused to co-sign. The bank thanked me and moved forward with their investigation. I didn't press charges. I didn't need to. The inquiry alone triggered reviews at my father's workplace, his security clearance suddenly questionable. My mother's loan applications were denied across the board. I learned this through Delilah, who called to say my mother was devastated. I felt nothing. Not vindication. Not guilt. Just distance. Salem's community learned the truth the way small towns always do, in whispers that become common knowledge. Someone leaked details about the credit inquiry. Someone else mentioned the $18,000. My mother's sympathetic posts stopped receiving likes. Relatives stopped calling them. My father took early retirement, whether voluntarily or not remained unclear. Their house, the one they tried to refinance using my name, went up for sale 6 months later. I learned this from a real estate listing online, scrolling mindlessly one evening. The photos showed empty rooms, beige walls, no indication anyone had lived there. I thought about the science fair ribbon I'd hidden in my desk drawer for years. About the dean's list letters they'd never hung on the fridge. About the girl who'd tried so hard to be seen. She was gone now. Someone stronger had taken her place. 1 year and 4 months after the promotion ceremony, I drove to Salem on a Sunday morning. The house was still empty, a sold sign staked in the yellowing lawn. I parked across the street and sat for a long time, engine idling. Finally, I pulled out an envelope I'd prepared. Inside was my business card, Director of Strategic Development printed in raised lettering, and a handwritten note on the same cream stationery I'd used for their invitation. I made it. Not because of you. Not in spite of you. Just without you. I hope you find peace with that. I finally have. I walked across the lawn, quiet in the early morning stillness, and slid the envelope into the mailbox. The metal door clanged shut with finality. I drove away as the sun broke over the valley, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. My phone buzzed with a message from Patricia. "Brunch later." I smiled and texted back. "Absolutely." The road stretched ahead, clear and open. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking back to see if anyone was following. I was too busy moving forward. Thank you for watching this story. If moments like these resonate with you, if you've ever had to choose yourself over people who couldn't see you, then you're not alone. We share stories like this every single day, real accounts of people who found their voice, set their boundaries, and walked into the life they deserved. Subscribe so you never miss next upload, and share your own story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Compliments of the season. I love you all.